Hey y'all, how's it going? Get me out here. Welcome back to episode 3 of my weekly video series slash podcast, or whatever you want to call it, The State of Wild. So just in case this is your first time tuning in, a reminder that I plan on doing 3 things during the next 15 minutes. First off, as you might have guessed, we're going to be talking of the state of the wild meta. So what's dominating, how to beat it, and decks that may be flying underneath the radar. Second off, we're going to be talking about any wild news or controversial topics, or maybe the lack thereof. We've got a little bit of juicy stuff to talk about today. And lastly, we're going to be talking about my decks of the week. So a powerful meta deck, a deck that's flying underneath the radar, and a fun off-meta pick that I've been enjoying. So before we get started, just a reminder to drop a like and subscribe to this video and this channel if you guys enjoy this content. It's free and it supports me a lot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. So since our last episode, we've had a ton happen. Alright, we had an entire expansion release, and that expansion brought about a ton of buffs, not only a bunch of tier 4, tier 5 decks, like expansions normally do in Wild, but we saw it bring about a whole new class, that then proceeded to get immediately nerfed, but is still relevant in the Wild meta. But the big thing that came from Ashes of Outland is that the top 6 decks in the meta, in my opinion, all got buffs. So Quest Mage got Evocation, Secret Mage got Netherwind Portal, Darkest Hour got Enhanced Dreadlord or Unstable Fellbolt, Jade Druid got Kael'thas and Fungal Fortunes, Cubok also got Enhanced Dreadlord, and Arena Priest got Renew. So what we've seen is even more shifting of the meta towards these top 6 decks, because they all got buffed and left stuff like Even Shaman a little bit in the dust. And so within these top decks, we're also seeing a meta that's developing within them, because Secret Mage's new tools don't really help them in that Quest Mage matchup that they're supposed to be dominant in, whereas Quest Mage got Evocation that helps bail them out of some games against Secret Mage. Which means Quest Mage's power has gone up a little bit, right? Which is kind of insane because it was already insanely powerful. And so that means that Darkest Hour also goes up in power as the most consistent counter to the deck. So the current meta at the very top, if you're tryharding in Legend, kind of sucks. But nerfs are coming. Today in a Reddit AMA, Blizzard has confirmed that we're going to be getting changes to Open the Waygate and Bloodbloom. We don't know what those changes are, and we don't know when they're coming, but they are coming soon. TM. And so we're also potentially going to be getting a nerf to Kael'thas because of Standard. And so what that means is we're looking at a major shakeup in the WoW meta soon. TM. We don't know when, but soon. So in the meantime, if you're looking to pick on these top 3 decks, though, Quest Mage, Darkest Hour, and Jade Druid, I would recommend playing something like Even Shaman. It's kind of flying underneath the radar because it didn't get any new cards in the new set. But I think including something like Nerebar Weblord as a little bit of a tech for Quest Mage, and devolves a pretty good card against stuff like Darkest Hour and Jade Druid. But down at the bottom Legend ranks, where I'm currently residing, I've been jamming a ton of these tier 4, tier 5 decks that got buffed, because that's what I love to do with a new expansion. So decks like Egg Hunter, Self-Damage Zulok, Discard Zulok, and Stealth and Secret Rogues. Those are the decks that I've been playing a ton. And so there's a lot of fun decks to be playing around with, and I think there's a lot of potential for some meta-breaking stuff once the nerfs happen, but in the meantime, there's a lot of things to just have fun with if you're looking for a few off-meta decks. So for the news portion of this week's episode, I want to take advantage of some of the drama and news kind of rotating around this Twitter sphere to address some of the feelings I've been having about this format in the game for a little bit now. So in case you hadn't heard, it was confirmed in a Reddit AMA that we're expecting changes to Open the Waygate and Bloodbloom sometime soon. And so now, before you guys go and start thinking that all of your whining and shitposting and ranting on Twitter and Reddit got your expected result, and that was the reason we got nerfs, just hear me out for a second, okay? Ixar said last week that there would be a round of changes this week with changes to Constructed. Okay, they said that last week. And remember, a month ago, Ixar also said that they were going to wait until we nerf things because there was an expansion coming out and they wanted to see how that shook up the meta potentially before nerfing more cards. And hey, look, here we are expecting changes, right? And so now, first off, I just want to put this on the record for anybody that doesn't normally watch my stream, okay? I believe that Wild should have balance updates, okay? I'm in the stance that Wild is an attractive format to many, because you can do dumb, powerful, synergistic things that are just not possible in Standard. That's why I love the format, okay? But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be intervention when a particular strategy or set of cards is much higher power level than the other strategies in the format, okay? And so that makes for a warped, uninteractive, unfun metagame, okay? For many. And so this results in fun for the player playing the broken set of cards or decks, and not very much fun for the other 70% of the people not playing the broken decks, okay? And so these are the scenarios, okay? These are the sole scenarios that I think Wild should be intervened in, and Wild should be receiving sets of nerfs. Not as frequently as people on Twitter and Reddit actually complain about, right? So if you look at the decks that got nerfed, Snip Block was absolutely oppressive, it got nerfed. Raza Priest was oppressive at the time, it got nerfed at the time. Okay? Barnes falls in the same basket as just unfun and uninteractive to play against. Giants Warlock as well. And all of these decks got nerfed, and now these two decks that are about to get nerfed fall in that same boat. Okay? So, moving on, okay? I've made my stance clear. Moving on to some tweets that kind of flared up a lot of feelings in the Hearthstone community, okay? So the first thing was Jay Alexander's set of tweets. Now, I don't 100% agree with what he has said, but I agree with part of the premise that he was basing his argument on. Okay, he just doesn't do a very good job at articulating that premise. And so let me explain. What he's saying here in a vacuum are sort of correct, right? But ignoring the fact that these broken, powerful things, okay, are usually combated by other broken, powerful things. Okay, Wild isn't fair or balanced. That's correct. It's 100% true. People do dumb things in this format. But he's phrasing it as an intrinsic property of an internal format that can't be balanced, which is just wrong because there's decades of magic balancing that renders his stance blatantly incorrect. Okay? And so people are usually able to combat these unbalanced things with other unbalanced things. And that's fine. That's part of what makes Wild fair, right? Combating unbalanced things with unbalanced things. Combos will only get more broken over time. Correct. But that doesn't mean things can't be fair. And I think anybody that plays this format semi-regularly understands that idea. Okay? There are degrees of unfairness, and people just don't like it when one deck is so much more unfair than the other unfair things in the format. Okay? And so part of the hesitation in nerfing, okay, and now this comment is directed at you Wild players, is what is the definition of so much more unfair that then requires a nerf, okay? So Hearthstone players in general, Wild or Standard, will always complain about the busted decks regardless of the format, okay? And if they nerfed cards based solely on community feeling, then they would be nerfing cards literally every week, okay? And so instead, the team decides to look at data, like any person that's sane should be doing, okay? And this is why people kind of get the impression of slower nerfs in Wild, is because, yes, they're slower because it takes a lot longer to gather that data. Okay? Wild has a smaller, less active player pool than Standard, okay? And therefore it takes time for the community to react to a powerful deck. And for that to show up in the data, or even for a powerful deck to show up as powerful in the data, okay? And then there's also this issue that compounds this because Wild has a much larger card pool than Standard, okay? And therefore it's really difficult for people, okay, Wild players, to find counters or counter strategies to the powerful decks. And even if they are found, it's extremely difficult for them to catch on because just there's kind of a general lack of net decking. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe it just takes slower for these decks to trickle down from the top to the general populace, okay? And so it takes time in our smaller format. And I think anybody that kind of denies that is kidding themselves. It takes time on our smaller format for them to make informed decisions based on the data, okay? And the fact that people keep comparing them to nerfs in Standard, it just kind of blows my mind. And then you get to the third part about this tweet. And this is the part that actually just drove me insane, and I think the part that a lot of people reacted to poorly. So, nerfing about these complained decks doesn't fix the problem, okay? I just don't understand. How are you measuring fix, okay? So when Blizzard nerfed Galakrond Shaman for Standard, did it fix the game? Or did Standard players just move on to complaining about the next broken thing? And I can confirm they did do that. Alright? He did that as well. Alright? And I think Corbett answers this question exactly how I would have done. So I want to give him a little bit of credit here. Nerfing these cards did make the format better. Okay? They did. Without a doubt. So saying that these nerfs weren't warranted or didn't work is just absolutely naive. The fact that this is being limited to just one format as well, when people make the same complaints about Standard, is just blasphemous, right? And so with all that being said, you're never going to make everyone happy. And that doesn't stop the developers from trying. So just back off a bit, all right? I'm not in the head of the Hearthstone team or a game developer in general myself, so those last bit's a little bit of pure speculation. But they said that they talk about Wild internally all the time. And I think the main point holding them back from changes, just a little bit, even at the current rate that people complain about the format, is that there's a small percentage of people that are going to be pissed when you take away their one deck or their favorite deck, or the deck that they spend a lot of time trying to build because they're free to play. Okay? And yes, that's true. And we saw that with Big Priest because people generally enjoyed playing that deck. And the stats with the VS report prove that. Because even after Big Priest was butchered, it's not in a favorable meta, and they nerfed Barnes, it's still the most popular deck at like rank 15. Okay? So it's true that they like people generally do enjoy playing some of the degenerate stuff. Okay? And that's something that they keep in mind. However, my message would be with more people playing this format than ever before, and more people joining the format every day, I'm just worried that without changes to the most oppressive decks, or the most oppressive archetypes, or strategies, you're going to lose a lot more people than that small percentage of people you're worried about pissing off. So now that my stance on power level and future nerfs are very clear, I'm not going to harp on those much longer. And so I want to take the second portion of this section to harp on something else. So, in case you missed it, NXR tweeted out a screenshot of a comment of a Wild player asking for nerfs in a comment on his wedding photo. His damn wedding photo. And it was in the most abrasive, toxic way possible, right? And he said it was tame, and I thought it was pretty toxic, which means that he gets much more disgusting, toxic messages in his DMs that he just doesn't share, right? The Hearthstone community in general, but specifically the Wild community, has some of the most toxic mindsets and people that I have seen in games in general. And I play MOBAs. And so before I go any further, like one thing has to be said. The internet and social media is an ugly place, especially because people can hide behind anonymity. But that doesn't mean that there's not place for discussion or criticism for the game, that those should be presented as logically constructed arguments, okay? Rather than flinging insults or expressing pent-up rage in an unhealthy manner. Developers don't owe you personally anything, okay? You're allowed to express your opinions and ideas about the format of the game, and that's your right, and I encourage that right. I express it all the time. But saying that you're unhappy with something is fine, but saying to someone that you need to change something because I'm unhappy with something, otherwise you're a dumbass who doesn't know how to balance a game or make a game, isn't really fine, right? Especially when presented in such a way that makes having any logical conversation impossible, okay? And so I certainly won't disagree that there is something to dislike about our format, okay? But crucifying the developers who earnestly try to make a great game for us to play and enjoy is not the answer to the problem, okay? You're entitled to your opinion about any aspect of the game, but that's it. It's your opinion, okay? And so this toxic behavior is a choice, one that many people choose to make, which is really sad and depressing, okay? Whether it's because of the competitive element of the game, or just the nature of the game, or the fact that you're hidden behind the profile of anonymity, people engage in this behavior all the time, okay? On Twitch and in Twitter, on Reddit. And I can't control what makes you happy, okay? But if you get immense amounts of pleasure out of being toxic to somebody, so be it. You do what makes you happy. Just let me know in advance so I can block you to make my experience more enjoyable. And so I want to say that I believe that the only feedback Blizzard gets about our format, gets about Wild, are people complaining to them and complaining about the format. And therefore, that's the only exposure our format really gets, okay? So, like on Twitter and on Reddit, where it's not the most popular format of the game, okay? This is the thing that always gets the news, is when somebody is super fucking toxic, okay? And it gets highlighted in a Reddit post. And so, it kind of... And the fact that these NERFS announcements came out so soon after that, okay? They can say that they had been working on these way before that message got posted to XR, but now there's this impression that's formed in Wild players' minds that bitching and complaining and whining and berating developers is the way to make change, which is just, it's frustrating because that's not true and that's not how you do it, okay? And so now, just the last bit of this is so much more difficult, to say, or to do rather than me just saying this, but as somebody who streams, or as like anybody that creates content will tell you, it's much easier to tear people down, okay, and tear content down. And so, like, the one thing that I wish the Hearthstone community could do would be to highlight those or respond to those people that are, positive beacons in the community. People like Rothfull, Solomon Dane, but also people that engage in conversations or discussion or discourse, like people like Corbett, that in a positive manner, right? Highlight this is how you get things done. This is how the community should behave and act, right? Because there's this idea that people are toxic because that's the only way that they can engage in change, which is just not correct to me. Okay, so like highlight discussions like Corbett and Nixar have had in the past, or highlight the discussion that like Celestalon has had on Twitter about their ideas behind certain things. Okay, and Cora has done a great job at this as well, because emphasizing and spotlighting the positive messages or discourse in the community can go a a long way in decreasing the amount of hate or toxic hate that gets the spotlight. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I can't even count all the people. Can't even begin to count all the people in this format that have contributed in a positive way. Rather, that's making great content or contributing to the community in a positive way by like moderating a subreddit or Discord community, or even like just generally enjoy playing the game. But and they greatly outnumber the toxic ones. However, that small percentage of toxic people, the people that get highlighted. And so, like, if you have issues, there are much more constructive ways to express yourself than how this person did earlier this week. Okay. Thank you for listening to me rant. Sorry, I'm over it. Going next. All right, y'all. So for my powerful meta deck, I think it'd be a little bit of a cop-out to feature Quest Mage, just because not only is it so good, it's so popular. So the deck I'm featuring actually is an updated Jade Druid list, running Kael'thas and Fungal Fortunes. So this version is one that I theory crafted before the expansion dropped, but was taken to rank 1 legend post-expansion on the NA servers. So the EU peeps have been running Saladris over Yogg, but I only really think Saladris is better than Yogg in the Jade Druid mirrors. And I mean, it's Yogg. How can you not run Yogg? But yeah, Fungal Fortunes is busted as expected, and I think we've established that Kael'thas is nuts. The deck holds its own against most of the top decks in the meta, and can potentially out-armor Quest Mages most of the time if they're not running Vargoth. So for our second deck, I wanted to feature a sort of meta deck featuring a spicy tech card. I've seen people running Nerebar Weblord a ton in Aggro Druid, but I recently saw Corbett running this in his Even Shaman. And so Even Shaman holds its own normally against Quest Mage. It's like a 50-50 matchup. But Nerebar Weblord hits Quest Mage a ton and swings the matchup much more into Even Shaman's favor. That coupled with Devolving into Druid and as a finisher against potentially Darkest Hour means that if you want to get some last second climbing in the current meta, this is probably the deck I do it with because it's pretty good into some of the top meta decks, plus people aren't teching for it or expecting it. And for the meme/fun deck of the week, I wanted to highlight a deck that I've been having a ton of fun brewing and playing on stream lately. So this deck is the evolution of that Bloodbloom Zoo video that I featured on my YouTube channel a couple days ago. So check out some of the games there if you're kind of looking at how this deck plays. But this deck is totally janky, but has some of the most insane pop-offs. Dark Glare is the nuts. Dark Glare is the nuts. But I've had a ton of fun brewing and playing this deck, and it's a ton of fun. I love the deck, love its playstyle. Probably my favorite deck of the expansion so far, and I'm definitely going to be messing with it some more. But yeah, guys, that's it. I know it's a bit longer than these usually are, but I had to rant a bit in there with everything that's happened the past few days. So just a reminder that we're going to be doing episodes like this weekly with news and decks every week. So a reminder that there are daily deck highlight videos up on YouTube as well as streams over on twitch.tv/getmeout. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you guys enjoy this kind of content. It's free and it supports me a lot. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys next week. Later.